Sudan is in the throes of a revolution. And this didn't happen yesterday or the day before. This has been happening for the last 8 months. But really, the country, which is in Northeast Africa, has been under a dictatorship for the last 30 years. They came and they chanted and they chanted and they called for him to step down. It was just constant. People go out, they get shot, they get beaten, they get arrested, they go back home, they recover, and they go back on the streets. April 6th, people decided to have a Millions March. And everyone around the world in the Sudanese community was so shocked to see so many people take to the streets. They all gather around the military headquarters where the president lives for his own protection. By the time it had been 5 days, the president was removed. He had to step down. It was a moment that people never imagined that they would even live to see. After President Omar al-Bashir stepped down, a transitional military council of his former allies came together to rule the country during the transitional period into an era of democracy. And on that council were people who had committed war crimes in Darfur. Some people bought it, but a lot of people didn't. And those were the people that stayed at that sit-in site. The deputy of the Transitional Military Council, people who know of the genocide in Darfur know of him and his militia. He was now basically the de facto vice president of the country. And increasingly with time, it became clear that he was the man in power. His troops were around the sit-in site. They had become a paramilitary force called the Rapid Support Forces. They were rebranded back in 2013. They took over the military's role, the army's role. They were stationed around the capital, but also just walking amongst the civilians at the protest site. The Rapid Support Forces led the charge into the sit-in, and more than 100 people were killed. And mobile phone footage was really the most legitimate source of documentation and media coverage. You didn't even have to go far to see videos of them beating people, of them cracking the whip, of them shooting people at protests. Things that we heard of from Darfur, stories that we heard that happened in Darfur, suddenly were being played out in the capital of Khartoum. That's when people started to notice. So the worst had to happen for the world to start listening.